come at you with another video. Now this one is a book review of number 1 and number 2 of the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. So number 1 is actually called Flawless, and that one I actually read the audiobook version. And number 2 is Heartless, and that one was an ebook version. So both of these books I'd actually borrowed from my local library through the app called Hoopla. If you have a library near you and they have that as a resource, I highly recommend checking that out. So you can get usually about 10 borrows a month, and they've actually got TV shows, comics, ebooks, audiobooks, all kinds of stuff, right? And they also have music too, but it's a great resource. And so so now first of all I'm going to talk about number 1, which is again called Flawless. So Elsie Silver is a relatively new to me author. These were the first 2 books I've ever read by her. And so the first one though, the main characters are Summer and Rhett. And Summer is actually Rhett's agent, his daughter. And Rhett has been kind of restless and doing things maybe he shouldn't have necessarily done. And then he ends up hiring his daughter, who is actually interning with the company to try to get him under control and handle him, right? And so it's what starts off as just a job with Summer and Red ends up turning into something more. And I really enjoyed this book. As well, Summer maybe didn't have the best family life and family relationship growing up. She had a half-sister as well, and their mom had kind of turned her sister against her dad and her, or against her at least. And Summer also was sick when she was younger, and so needless to say, because of that, her dad and her were really close growing up. And Rhett's agent was Kip Hamilton, and that was Summer's dad. And so of course, funny thing is, when Kip ended up giving Summer the job to sort of handle Rhett, he wasn't necessarily only trying to give her the job. He actually was trying to play matchmaker unbeknownst to Summer. And funnily enough, it ended up working in both regards. So he ended up getting more responsible and doing better all around on the rodeo circuit. And at the same time, he ended up falling for Summer. And I highly recommend that book. It was a great read. Also, too, the voice actors were great. Sometimes, the voice actors are just and other times they're pretty good. That's number 1, again, in that series, as I said. And the second book that I read, which I just finished earlier today, is called Heartless. And so those of you who may or may not know, but there's 3 Eaton brothers, and then there's also a sister, right? And so Red Eaton was the main male character from the first book. The second book, the main male character is Cade Eaton, who's actually Rhett's older brother. And they have another brother who's in the army. And they also have another friend who's almost like a brother, who's actually a hockey player. And he is actually who number 3 is about. So I am actually really looking forward to reading number 3. I'm just starting it now. I'll let you know how I enjoy it afterwards, right? Now, number 4 is called Reckless, and number 4 is Theo and Winter's story. So Winter is Summer's sister, right? And Winter was really unhappy with the fiance or the husband that she was with. So needless to say, in the second book, which I've just finished reading, it ends up that Willa ends up running into her at the hospital, the local hospital in Chestnut Springs. And, and she was really just, she said to Winter, like, she's like, hey, what are you doing here? Because she wasn't expecting her to be there, as Winter normally works in the city. Like, she normally works in Calgary. And she was trying to get away from her ex-husband, or her husband she was kind of separated from, but like trying to break away from, but wasn't fully broken from. And yeah, so her story is going to be the 4th story, and I'm kind of excited for that. And again, as I said, number 3 is another in the Chestnut Springs series, is actually called Powerless. And that one is the story of their friend Jasper, who's an NHL player, and, his relationship. And I'm really excited for that. I'm just starting to read it. Now, number 2 is called Heartless. And number 2 is actually Cade and Willa's story. And Cade is a single dad, and he has this big, big heart. And he is, a single dad. And he had been burned in his previous relationship. And, he was afraid to open up to love again. And he needed to hire a nanny for his son for the summertime so that Luke got to do some more fun kid things over the summer, instead of just being around around his dad and brothers, and so he got to have a life other than just ranching over the summer. And needless to say, every possible nanny candidate that he got to meet and interviewed, he turned down. And so lo and behold, Summer's friend Willa was looking for something to do over the summer, and and then she ended up giving Willa a reason, or a way to to get to stay in Chestnut Springs, and an opportunity to be close by. And so she ended up giving her the job to work as a nanny for Cade, as I said, Rhett's older brother. And funny thing is, Summer had told Cade that Willa had a lot of experience with kids and wrangling crazy boys, or like rowdy boys. But what she didn't tell her is that really Willa didn't have any experience with kids. But, but yeah, she'd worked with a lot of guys, and she wrangled a lot of rowdy boys, but they were the adult variety, as she'd mostly had experience working in a bar. But it ended up that Will was a natural working with Luke, and, and they were perfect together. And, at one point, Luke actually says to Willa, I wished you were my mom instead of my mom. And, and eventually too, Cade opens up his heart and begins to love Willa, even before he realizes it himself, he's really fallen for her. And I highly recommend both of these books in this series. They're both great reads. Whether you listen to the ebook version or the audiobook version, or if you read the physical book, it's definitely a great thing to pick up, and a good series to read and put on your TBRs if you haven't read it yet. Anyways, I would probably say number 1, I'd give it maybe a 4 out of 5. And number 2, I'd probably say give it a 5 out of 5, maybe 4.5 or 5 out of 5. And yeah, definitely, I'll let you know, as I said, about what I think about number 3, called Powerless, when I'm done it. Just starting it, so we'll see how it is. Now, I've heard from other people that have read this series that some of the books are better than others. Now, once I'm all done the series, I can give you an opinion about, which book I thought was best, and which one didn't rank so good on the list. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care. Bye, guys.